watched it again last night. And in this film, whenever the bad guy confronts someone that he is about to assassinate, he asks a question. Do you know what your sin is? Already, we are into the third week of Lent, nearly halfway through this year's journey to Easter. And during this 6 weeks, we are encouraged to examine our lives and ponder this very question. Do we know what our sin is? And so far, the lessons we have read each week have looked at various members of the family of God, and they've talked about temptation, the sin that faced them, and how they responded. Our journey began with Adam and Eve in the garden, doing exactly what God told them not to do. Don't eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Anything else, everything else is there for you to use for food. Just don't eat from that tree. And we know what happened. Their sin was their desire to be like God, knowing good and evil. They gave in to temptation and were removed from Eden. This lesson was Genesis was coupled with the story of Jesus in the wilderness being tempted by Satan. And again, the temptation was the desire to be like God. Make these stones into bread, jump from the temple, bow down to me, and the world will be yours. The difference was Jesus really was God, but he resisted the temptation to be like God. Last week, Nicodemus questioned Jesus about who Messiah was and how could a person be born from above. His sin was needing to know the hows and the whys God did things. And this was paired up with the story of Abram, who was told by God, leave everything you know, move to a land I will give you, and Abram got up and went. Abram had every reason to question and ask for explanations, but he did not give in to the temptation to question God. He trusted. Today we read about Abraham's descendants who had not inherited Abraham's unshakable faith. The Israelites have been in the wilderness really just a short time. They've escaped Pharaoh's armies, they've crossed the Red Sea, they've been led by the presence of God in a pillar of cloud and a pillar of fire. God has fed them with manna and quail and has provided water in the desert. Now, one would think, with all these obvious signs that God was with his people, Israel would be willing to trust God to take care of them. Instead, when they get thirsty, they go whining to Moses. Give us water to drink. Why did you bring us out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst? Now, I find this interesting that this happened when the Israelites were in the wilderness of Sin, which is, of course, the name of the region and had nothing to do with right or wrong. It is, however, where the sin of the people of Israel shows itself. They don't trust God. It didn't take much for the people of Israel to forget about God. They had experienced firsthand the great works of God in far more spectacular ways than any of us will likely ever see. But let them get a little thirsty and bam, they're whining at Moses. What they obviously should have done when they felt the need for water would have been to pray for the Almighty God, who was visibly in their presence. Pillar of cloud, pillar of fire, it's right there. God had provided before, obviously, and generously. All the people needed to do was ask, and God would provide again. God always hears and answers the prayers of his people. Moses, in fact, does turn to God with the complaint of the people, and God does provide, causing water to gush out of a rock. Why didn't the people turn to God first? Why did they quarrel with Moses, who is, after all, only a human man, even if he was chosen by God to lead Israel from Egypt to the Promised Land? Notice the name Moses gave the place where this happened. Massa, which means testing, and Meribah, which means quarreling. Suitable names, because we are told in the text, the Israelites quarreled and tested the Lord, saying, is the Lord among us or not? This question often comes up in our lives, especially during times of trial. You think people aren't asking that right now these days? Lack of faith in God is the original sin. It's what caused Adam and Eve to eat the forbidden fruit. It's what prompted Nicodemus' inability to understand. Their sin, our sin, is lack of faith in God. As the Israelites in the wilderness of Sin asked, is the Lord among us or not? When we are in the midst of difficult times, when we are in the wilderness, it's easy to believe that we have been abandoned Certainly the Israelites thought so, which is why they fussed at Moses. They're in the desert. Their lives were in danger. They were scared. A large group of people in the desert, no water. God must have abandoned them. The problem was they decided this was their reality without first calling upon God to help them. They didn't even give God a chance to provide. They were giving up, throwing in the towel, even after all the evidence of God's goodness, and without calling on God for help. Not exactly how we would hope the chosen people of God would behave. In our gospel lesson, the counterexample of the faith response. The Samaritan woman met Jesus at the well, and she was in the opposite position of the children of Israel. The Samaritans are a race shunned by the Jews, and this woman had had a pretty difficult life, having gone through 5 husbands, apparently living in sin, the wilderness of sin. If she had demonstrated limited faith in God, it really would have been understandable. Instead, this Samaritan woman engages in a theological discussion with Jesus, discussing the coming Messiah and the place of worship. And when Jesus offered her living water, revealing that he is the Messiah, she immediately ran through her village and told everyone she met that there was someone pretty special at the town well, perhaps even the Messiah. The whole town came out to meet Jesus, listened to him, and they believed. What a difference! The Jews, the chosen ones, being led out of slavery by the servant of God, were quick to doubt the presence of God, while the Samaritans, who had been despised and shunned by the Jews, were eager to believe in the Messiah of God. As we continue our Lenten journey, we will be presented with more examples of temptation, sin, and faith, or lack of faith, in the people of God. Each story is an opportunity to learn from the examples of God's people through the ages and to examine our own faith response. How would we react to God in this situation? Do you know what your sin is? What are you doing about it? Do you trust in God's presence, following whatever God may lead, even when you can't see how it's all going to turn out? Or not? Amen. Our hymn is in the blue hymnal in 776.
conceived by the power of the Holy Spirit, and born of the Virgin Mary. He suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died, and was buried. He descended into hell. On the third day he rose again from the dead. He ascended into heaven, and is seated at the right hand of the Father. He will come again to judge the living and the dead. I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Holy Catholic Church, the communion of the saints, the forgiveness of sins, and the resurrection of the body, and life everlasting. Amen.
Let us pray for the whole people of God, in Christ Jesus, and for all people according to their needs. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you that you are always watching over us, guiding us, and leading us. We ask, Lord, that during the season of Lent, you help us to truly examine our lives, identify what our sin is, and to repent and return our lives to you. Lord, in your mercy.
Hear our prayer.
We ask, Lord, that you help us to follow the example of all those who have been faithful to your word, trusting in you despite so many odds. Help us to know, Lord, that no matter what happens, you are always with us, watching over us. Lord, in your mercy.
Hear our prayer.
Gracious Father, on this day, we pray for those who will be joining us at the communion rail for the first time. We ask, Lord, that you watch over Jacob and Taylor and Kari. Help them to feel your presence. Lord, in your mercy.
Hear our prayer.
God of strength and healing, we pray for all those who are sick. We especially ask, Lord, that you watch over those who have been affected by the virus. We pray for all healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, and therapists who are caring for people in the midst of this crisis. Help us, Lord, to put our faith in you, and we pray, Lord, that you would eliminate it quickly. We ask, Lord, for healing for those of our family, especially near your care. Watch over Evelyn and Joe. Bring healing to Susan and Jerry, Jeff, Kurt, and Ben. Lord, in your mercy. God of comfort, we pray for those who have recently lost loved ones, that they might find hope and the promise of eternal life. We ask, Lord, that you watch over the family and friends of Vic Highway. Lord, in your mercy.
Hear our prayer.
God of presence, be with all those of our family who are not able to be with us in worship. Help them to know we keep them in our hearts and prayers. Lord, in your mercy.
Hear our prayer.
God of protection, be with all men and women in the service of our country all over the world. Help them to feel your presence and bring them safely home. Watch over James, John, David, Ryan, Anthony, Brandon, and Eli. Be with Cullen, Brooke, Jefferson, Mallory, and Mary, Josh, Ryan, and Derek. Lord, in your mercy.
Hear our prayer.
Gracious Father, we pray for our country that in these days of election, men and women who would be put into place that are people who look to you for wisdom and guidance in the midst of all things. We pray, Lord, that the open places of leadership within our government are filled with people who know and love you. Lord, in your mercy.
Hear our prayer.
All that we ask, all that we see that we need, grant to us, Father, in the name of him who died and rose again, that we might live eternally with you. Amen. The peace of the Lord be with you always.
And also with you.